Welcome to The World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
I'm Kirstie Bedford, journalist, editor and travel writer.
And I'm Belinda Jackson, author, travel journalist and columnist, and we're your weekly co-hosts.
Welcome back. We have some huge news to share this week. Big news. My co-host on this show, Belle Jackson, has just been named the Travel Writer of the Year at the Australian Society of Travel Writers Annual Media Awards. This is the peak body representing travel writers in Australia, so there's genuinely no bigger honour in the country than to be named Travel Writer of the Year. And Belle's going to tell us a bit about it because I'm putting her on the spot. So she had a very big glitzy night out. So how did it go, Belle?
Oh, it was amazing, actually. Like, I'm still in shock. I am, because it's enormous. I was up against some really great writers, including my friend Craig Tansley. Craig. So to enter this particular category, you have to submit 3 stories from the work that you've published in the past year, and I put in a couple of some pieces I'm really proud of. I had one about travelling as a solo woman in Saudi Arabia, which was published on traveller.com.au. It was and I just I really feel really deeply about this one, and I also published another story about women's only travel in Islamic countries, which was a cover story in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. And the third one was when I was from my travels in Sarawak, which is the Malaysian state in Borneo, which I was published in Gourmet Traveller. I've got to say, not gorgeous magazine. Parts of that trip, though, I was picking leeches off my legs in the tropics as we were tromping through the rainforest. So, they were all very off the beaten path. And what I was saying at the time at the awards was, especially with the Saudi women and women's only adventures in the Middle East or in Islamic countries, is sometimes we get the chance to tell not only our story, I went to Saudi and I didn't have to wear a headscarf kind of thing, but the other side too of talking to Saudi women and asking them how they see change in their own countries. Occasionally, it's not all cocktails on the beach, although don't mind a cocktail on the beach, do we?
No, we do not.
But the other side of it is giving people a voice that they might not have had before. And Saudi women have not had that. They don't have a voice usually in mainstream media. So I think I'd like to think that that's one of the reasons that the judges, who are all independent, drawn from academia and the media, I'm hoping that's what they saw in these stories.
And also just, genuine journalism, you have a real skill, and I think that's a real skill that we learned back in the day as journos, but I think it's really important to, and it shows your true value as a really good journalist to actually seek out those people and not just write, a piece about, which is important to talk about the senses of a place, but it's really nice, like you said, to hear from the actual people. But this wasn't the only award that you won. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here, Belle. Please tell us a little bit about the other things that have filled up your luggage and made you. I know
I couldn't check my. I couldn't just use hand luggage anymore. I had to check it in. They were pretty heavy. Yeah, I did. I won the story for best accommodation. The award for best accommodation story, and that was a place very close to my heart. It's called the Benev up in Beechworth in northern Victoria. Gorgeous place. I wrote a lot about the linen, and I was having a crisis because I didn't have any linen in my luggage. But because it's one of those places that you waft around beautifully. And so instead of just being a straight hotel review, I stayed here. It's got 210 rooms or whatever. I got the chance to go a little deeper into that and flounce around with my linen and beautiful scents. In this gorgeous spa property, and that was published in Explore Travel, which appears predominantly in the Canberra Times and the Newcastle Herald, and I was also got the Jack Butters Award too, which is Jack was the first president of the ASTW, and this is an award for those who've contributed to outstanding service to the Australia. Oh, it sounds terribly.
It's not. It's amazing, and it's well deserved. So. yeah, I just think, for anyone that knows you, they would know that you just don't find a harder working writer. And Belle's also an absolute incredible wordsmith. So on behalf of myself and on behalf of our producer, Alistair, I just want to say huge congratulations, and we're so proud of you.
No, thank you. I have published the stories on my blog, actually. So if you want to go to globalsalsa.com, you'll be able to read them there if you're interested on taking a little spin through the Middle East. And thanks, Kirstie. Thanks, Alistair. So we are talking about Expedia's travel trends. Expedia owns What If and Stays, and it has unveiled Unpack 24, which is a comprehensive look about what's motivating travellers and where we're all going next year. So they've come up with 8 new travel trends for 2024, and they've all got some pretty fun names. So what's the first one, Kirstie?
So the first one up is destination dupes. So this is places that are a little bit unexpected, sometimes more affordable, but as good as the tried and true destinations that travellers love. So some examples are Paros as a dupe for Santorini, Quebec City as a dupe for Geneva, and Taipei as a dupe for Seoul. So I love this because who doesn't want a place that offers the same incredible experience but without the crowds?
It's a great one, that one. Other trends are tour tourism. So its research found that more than 60% of Australians say they are likely to travel to a concert outside their own town, with more than 40% saying they'd travel for a concert as an excuse to visit a new place. And then there's the set jetting forecast. I see what they did there. We talked about this one a lot. And top destinations for travellers are Thailand for White Lotus, Romania, which inspired Wednesday's Season 2, Paris because of Emily in Paris and Season 4, and the Scottish Highlands thanks to the sometimes very raunchy Outlander. So, yeah, full of women rushing up to the Scottish Highlands to find a bloke in a kilt that, well, I tell you what, just watch the series you know what I'm talking about. Or read the books. It's can be a little bit blush-worthy.
Next up is dry tripping. I like this one. So that's an increase in the sober, curious traveller. So going to places that offer more non-alcoholic options, so including hotels. So cool idea, given that there are a lot of people now that just don't want to go to places where, everywhere it seems to be nothing but alcohol and drinking. And also regional glow-ups. So that's regional places that have had a significant transformation, and it highlighted some local places like Newcastle, Geelong and Lorne.
Yeah, nice. Well, we'll put that list in the show notes. But the final trends were alternative occasions, so think puppy moons or first date anniversaries and retirement parties, and outside in, which was a focus on outdoor experiences, so properties with great outdoor hot tubs, tennis courts, lawn games, and amazing outdoor entertainment spaces were on that list. Yeah. And finally, Gen AI. So in 2024, Expedia Group predicts there will be a generation of generative AI travellers who will fully embrace this technology to plan their trips. And that's going to be an interesting one to watch play out. It's such a big topic, though. I think we might cover that off on another issue with an expert in the field, because it opens a huge can of worms that we just, we can't unpack just here.
Absolutely.
You're listening to The World Awaits. We'd love it if you could leave us a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform.
My guest this week is author of the Slow Road Cookbook, Kirianna Poole, who talks to me about life on the road in a vintage combi and some of the best places to road trip around Australasia. Welcome to the show, Kiri.
Thank you so much for having me.
So great to chat with you. So let's talk about, tell us a bit about what you do, and you've obviously been living on the road for a while. So we're going to tell us a bit about what made you decide to renovate a van and hit the road.
Yeah, so we've been on the road now since 2018. So since our little boy, I think he would have been about 18 months old when we decided that it was time to explore Australia. And yeah, basically we were just living over in Tokyo at the time. So abroad, we weren't too connected back in Australia where my husband's from. And we just sort of thought it was time to show him Australia. And that was the main call for it. And then it was about finding the right way to do it. I guess, you can fly around and do it bit by bit. You can buy a caravan and of all sorts, but we were just hoping for like a single vehicle at the time to store away, because at the time we were actually going back and forth to Japan. So my husband, he had said to me that the dream was to do it in a combi, and it had to be a split screen combi of a certain year. It was kind of the goal. And we just struck lucky. We basically found the perfect combi, essentially, that was for sale and available for us. So we jumped on a flight, flew to Perth and had a look at it, fell completely in love. And that was really the beginning of our combi obsession, I guess. Though I'm pretty sure has stemmed from being, a teenager, surfy boy. And that was, I guess that was the very start of it. And we were just keen to do it slow. We weren't out to, speed around. We had this idea that we'd do it for a few years and would just, take it in stints, do sort of 3 weeks at a time, and then go back to work in Japan, and then, come back and follow the sun. The combi's not really a winter vehicle. She's probably more of a sunny side. So that's why we decided on taking it slow, because we just wanted to monitor weather and slowly make our way around. And we did that for probably 2 years in the start, just back and forth, long trips, short trips. We'd just store it in either family and friends' garages, or we'd put her in a lockup for short periods of time, and then plan a trip and head away on an adventure. So that's where it started. It was pretty simple, to be fair.
So where have you been, and what places have you covered? Is it because I know you're in New Zealand now. So but did you take the van obviously around around Australia, and what have you covered in Australia?
Yeah, so the first year we basically did a full circle of the whole country. So we purchased the vehicle in WA, and then we had her shipped and then trucked to the East Coast. We fitted out like a little kitchenette. It was a wedding car at the time, so we pulled out one of the rear seats and put a kitchenette in there, and then had like a little annex come off the side. So we started on the East Coast from the Sunshine Coast, and we made our way to our first major stop would have been Tassie. So Tassie all the way round, up through the Nullarbor back to the West Coast, and then looped back around to the East Coast. So we did the full circle, and then come 2020 or 2021, just as COVID hit, we decided to pack up and hit the road again, and that's where we went through the middle this time. So back up through the middle and then down the Nullarbor. So I would say we've covered the entire country.
Wow, incredible. And in that time, so what are some of the some of the most incredible experiences you've had along the way? And you've had more children along the way. How did you manage that?
Yeah, it seems to be a growing situation. When we left, yes, we did have just Riley, and by the time we had hit Darwin on that first lap that I mentioned, I was heavily pregnant with my daughter Alba. So 2 major pregnancies, and the combi was a bit wild. And then, our third was Elsie, who, had her last year. So we had to change the combi and how it sort of sets up over the years. But those are probably big milestones to add to the list of great things that happened for us on the road. But we've seen so many beautiful places, met loads of extremely beautiful people. I guess we've just experienced what the core of Australia is over these years.
What are some of the most sort of memorable places, or some of the places that you would recommend that people should definitely go if they were travelling around in a van?
Yeah, I think that there's nothing really unbeatable than going through the Kimberleys. There's something about that top end. I think it really is the at the heart of Australia. You learn a lot about the culture and history of the Indigenous people up there and how beautiful they are, and the landscape is just it's unbelievable. Really, you do stand at places like Uluru and the Bungle Bungles, and it's completely mind blowing.
And what about how do you do it with children? Like, what are some tips for people who are trying to travel with very young children? There must be some challenges involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, we're very lucky. We've always travelled with our children, so they don't really know anything different. So I try really hard to think about something really constructive to give to people, because I know that a lot of people would probably be leaving a home to travel. For us, it was they grew up travelling. And I think it's just, little things like getting out on weekends and seeing how much they love being outdoors and what they can learn from being outdoors really is something that encourages us to keep going. And what I encourage people to do who want to hit the road. But challenges, I guess we've got lots of emotions. 3 kids, they're all different. They're constantly, bickering like everybody else's children out. And I think it's just keeping them occupied and learning something exciting is always great value. But I think it's up to them, isn't it, really? These guys, they love being on an adventure. They love hopping in the combi and asking where to next. It's just sort of in their blood now.
And you're obviously very good at with meal preps and cooking on the road, because you've actually got a book now. Tell us a bit about your book and what made you write that.
So my love language has always been food. I've always been someone who's a feeder. Who's probably been the person with packed lunches and always had a picnic ready to go. I guess the food for me is a big part of our journey. And when we were travelling around Australia, I really enjoyed learning about local ingredients and sort of bringing them to the table. A lot of my cooking had to be cooked outside because the combi doesn't have like a cooktop or anything like that inside it. So I learned to cook over the fire a lot of the times and in camp ovens and things like that, but trying to make things a bit more enjoyable or even quicker. So lots of meals in the camp oven would stretch out for a few days. If I knew we were staying in a place where we could, put a 3-hour pulled pork in, then I knew that would kind of last for a trek of maybe 3 or 4 days for lunches and dinners and snacks and things like that. So I just learned to make food kind of last in that sense. And then by the time we were fishing throughout the top of Western Australia, I realised that people they weren't too sure about what to do with the ingredients that they were using, and that's when I started cooking for other campers. And feedback was like, often I wish I had a recipe for that or knew how to do that. And then that sort of transpired into what the book is now, giving people advice about what to use with their ingredients when travelling.
Amazing, and we'll put a link in the show notes to the book too, so people can find it. But so what are your plans next? Where are you going to go next?
I wasn't going to tell you. But I think we're nearing it now, so I can. We basically, like I said, we had our 3rd baby last year, and that's when we found our vintage caravan to tow behind the combi. So we couldn't all fit in our little tent and combi anymore, and that's where I thought it was over. But no, my husband, he seeked out a little fiberglass, the Franklin caravan. It weighs like 700 kilos. It's very light, and even after the renovation, we probably reduced some of that weight there as well. So we brought the caravan and we hitched that up to the combi after a few spec changes, and we were kind of like, what should we do next? Like, we've done Australia, what's next? My grandparents are over here and my family, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to come here for everybody to sort of rebond and reconnect. All the while we travelled New Zealand and ticked that off. So we've been here since January, and we've now completed the whole country.
Wow.
Super, super exciting. Yeah. I was just literally talking to my sister about places that we'd forgotten about as kids and the memories that they bring. So it's been really cool to take my children to those spots. But now that that's done, the caravan and combi are getting ready to jump on a ship, and they'll be heading to Japan. We'll be doing Japan.
Wow. So you're going to travel around Japan in the combi?
Yeah. So pretty big camping scene over there. They really love camping. They love vintage. So I think we're going to be welcomed with big warm arms over there, and hopefully we can camp under Mount Fuji and share our experience there.
Fantastic. And what now that you've done the length of New Zealand, what's one or two, a particular standout place for you that maybe people haven't, that isn't on the sort of standard golden route in New Zealand that you've been to?
Yeah, I think that obviously most people think of New Zealand and they want to do a road trip through the South Island, through the mountains. Lake Tekapo is always like a hot spot. Even where I am now here in Queenstown, it's just very pretty and very different in terms of contrast to Australia. But I really thoroughly enjoyed, it's another great place is Coromandel, but I really enjoyed it. I think that it's really pretty. There's lots of places to camp and pull up. It's got a nice feel to it. It's just, it was a really, really fun place. And then on the other end of that would be right to the top of the north, seeing Cape Vanga and all those spots. That was really pretty too. So I highly recommend going.
It's been so great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. So we're going to end the interview now asking you the question that we ask all of our interviewees, which is, what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you in your travels?
I have to say there's one thing that's quite strange. Like everybody would ask, how does the Combi cope travelling? And I would say that a lot of the times very well. But in the last sort of 2 years, we have had a lot of strange things happen with the engine and things like that. And most recently, it would be the fact that any time we break down or pop a tyre or anything like that, it happens as we roll into a town. I don't know if that's like eerie or not, but it is bizarre, and it only ever happens at that point. Like we've never been stranded. We've never been, for instance, on the middle of the Nullarbor and lost something or, a gear's gone. It's always been 100 Ks, 100 meters into a town. That's probably the most bizarre thing that happens. She gets us somewhere safe and then she'll conk out, lose a tire or brake or something like that, and it will be very close to somewhere safe.
Oh gosh, well, it's all the love you've put into it.
Yeah, I think she's got a soul.
Oh, look, it's been so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
I think a lot of us dream of a life on the road, and to do it with small children is truly remarkable. If you want to follow Kiri's travels around Japan, jump onto her Instagram at the Slow Road _. They're the ones with more than 170,000 followers, so you can't miss them.
Our tip this week is about some of the newest hotels and refurbs at airport hotels here in Australia and what you can expect at each of them. And we'll also tell you the world's top airport hotels as per the latest Skytrax World Airport Awards. So kicking things off is here at home is the newly refurbished Park Royal Melbourne, which is the only hotel directly connected to the domestic and international terminals. And it also has some really good facilities. So 24-hour fitness centre and a nice indoor pool. And from January, this is pretty cool, you can buy a day pass. So I really like this idea because we've talked about this before, but if you don't have lounge access, it's just awful sitting around the airport. And so for about $100, I think it's 109 Australian, you can get a 3-hour pass. So that means that you can check into a room and have a nap, or you can just use the gym and the pool or chill out in the spa or sauna or steam room.
I think that's fantastic. I always there's actually nothing better than having a steam before you get on, and then you get on the flight and you're all clean and lovely, and you've washed away the stress of getting to the airport.
Yeah.
In Sydney, there's the cool new kid on the block, which is Moxie, which opened a couple of months ago, and it's the first hotel to open in the domestic airport precinct since 2020. So while it's worth pointing out, Air Hotel did open inside Sydney's International Terminal last year. This is that was Australia's first hotel actually inside the airport, and that can be booked for blocks of time too, like 3 or 6 hours. So it's ideal for transit. Moxie is in Mascot, and that's about 10 minutes from the airport. It is unashamedly, the brand is created for the young and young at heart. It's big colour. It has a chic, renovated warehouse kind of vibe. And some really cool features too, like Little Baxter, which pays homage to the local milk bar with grab-and-go snacks. And the living room has a 1970s photo booth. You've got reclaimed vintage lounge chairs. So, it's somewhere that you can just sort of just instantly be comfortable in. It's a bit more memorable as well than, the beige hotel trend.
Back in Melbourne, and the Mantra Melbourne Airport is undergoing a massive renovation. So that reopens next year, and it'll have new rooms, a new restaurant and bar, and also Perth Airport is planning on opening its first airport hotel, saying earlier this year it was looking to partner with a world-class hotel group to open a hotel next to the airport central station. And there's also a great new shopping precinct in Sydney Airport now called SydX, where they set out to be Australia's largest collection of luxury brands. Nice for a bit of browsing or spending large if you are that way inclined. It's all class with Cartier, Versace, Rolex, Prada and Tiffany.
Okay. Right. Well, I don't know. Can you quickly have a splurge on a Tiffany ring before you run to your flight? I don't know.
I could easily do it. Okay, the money.
Clearly, I just need to practice a bit more. Hey, listen. Also, I was in Darwin recently and passed this site, which is about to open, which is the old Novotel and the Mercure hotels have been merged into one ginormous property. They've spent $30 million on it. It's huge. It's got a new Olympic-sized swimming pool, and there's poolside cabanas amongst the tropical gardens, which is really lovely, so you can just chill out pre-flight or post-flight. Interestingly, it's got an Indigenous training academy as well, and they will be bringing in some cultural experiences. So the two hotels have been combined just a couple of minutes from the airport. So you've got a mix of budget-friendly as well as more fancy.
I love that idea. We've talked about this before and how airports don't celebrate the region or the country where they are, So that's really great that they're doing those cultural experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, drum roll, please. Kirstie.
I can drum roll.
Okay. The reason for the drum roll is the Skytrax World Airport Awards. Best Airport Hotel for 2023 has been named, and topping the list was the Crowne Plaza Changi Airport, which was Best Airport Hotel in 2023. It is the 8th consecutive year this hotel has been named the best by travellers.
Surprisingly, Singapore.
Yeah, well, Changi, right? The amount of money they put into that is astonishing. Others in the top 5 included the Hyatt Regency Shenzhen, the Fairmont Vancouver, Movenpick Hotel in Bahrain, and TWA Hotel in New York's JFK. So we'll put the links to those in our show notes. This week I'm talking to Ian Hemphill, who is the founder of Herbie Spices, which is Australia's most iconic spice store. If you've ever been in there, they used to have a shop front in Rozelle, which was just a walk through another world. If you love experimenting with exotic dishes, tune in as Ian has travelled the world in search of spices to bring home to Australia, and he also leads the occasional tour. Take a listen. Ian, you've been following spice roads around the world for decades. What started your interest, and are you a spice nerd?
I'm definitely a spice nerd, but a little bit more than that. People often say to me, "Oh, you're passionate about spices, aren't you?" And I generally say, well, actually, I don't think I'm passionate, because passions come and go. I would have to be honest and say that I am obsessed with spices. And the reason for that is that my mother and father had a herb business out of Sydney back in the mid-1950s. And my mother, whose name was Rosemary Hemphill, was the first Australian to have a book published on herbs. And Mum and Dad went on to write a number of other books about herbs and spices. So I grew up in a home where there would be produce drying in the hallways, where I'd be helping Dad pick herbs, where it was a part of my life.
So you travelled all over the world for decades hunting out spices. What's your favourite destination for spices? What's the place that you always return to?
Well, the place we always return to is India. I suppose on what's your favourite? I often think, who's your favourite grandchild? But yes, India is fascinating because, first of all, it is the world's largest producer of spices. It's the world's largest consumer of spices, and it's the world's largest exporter of spices. And of course, also in India, you find the biggest range of spices being produced. So you go to Morocco and people say, oh, isn't it lovely? You see all the Moroccan spices. But what you're actually seeing is probably 70 to 80% Indian and spices from other parts of the world. It's just that they're used in Morocco and they're used in Moroccan cooking in a different way to, say, an Indian cooking. So, yeah, India is really significant, even though many of the spices that India now produces are not native to India, but they have ended up in India and being propagated and become part of the Indian spice industry.
So specifically in India, where would you go? Where's that place that you walk into and you feel like you've just come back to home? Is there a spice market that is your ground zero?
Oh, most definitely. Essentially, if you really want to see spices, first of all, you need to be in Cochin. Mm. And when you're in Cochin, when you go to the vernacular markets, now the vernacular markets have got all sorts of produce. So you'll find the fishmongers, you'll find all the different fruit and veg, everything. But you'll also find all the spices. And so to actually see a big range of spices, that is a really good place to go, is the vernacular markets. And if you really want to get deep dive into the world of spices, you need to go up the hills, up to a little village called Komali, which is near the Periyar Lake, and that's up in the high country. And that's the part of the world where spices like cardamom and pepper originated from. And when you go to those areas, you can walk down the streets and you'll find all different people selling spices. But of course, you can actually go out and see spice farms. You can see people picking peppercorns and you can see them drying in the sun. And it's just, it's definitely spice heaven. That whole Kerala was very much one of the epicenters of the spice trade. And it is a great place for people to visit. What you'll find in the north, they're growing more of the seed spices. You'll find the food in the north is actually, it's a little more complex than the food in the south. Food in the south's very fresh, clean, lots of ginger. They use a lot of turmeric. They use curry leaves. They use fresh coriander leaf. So it's a very different style to up in the north, where it's deeper, richer flavour profiles in the north of India. But for looking at spices, yep, you can't beat Kerala. It's fabulous.
Oh, sensational. You actually aside from sourcing and selling spices, you also run spice tours as well. Do you take people to these places on your tours?
Exactly, yeah. See, what happened was, just after that was before we started our business, actually. We were talking to some people at actually a foodie function, and Liz was saying to someone, people don't know where pepper comes from. They think it just comes out of a jar. People have got no idea about cardamom. It'd be great to actually show these to people. The guy we were talking to was a travel agent, and he's actually one who specialised in India. So he said, oh, I can organise that, you can do that. So we actually did our first tour to India with a group of people in 1991. Then after we started Herbie Spices in 1997, we thought, well, first of all, we're not in the tourism business really, but because spices are our obsession, and because one of our very important strategic elements to our Herbie's business is to educate people. So you probably know, Belinda, that I've written books on herbs and spices, and they're published here and overseas.
I have them on the
yeah, thank you. And so because education is part of our strategic direction, we thought, well, let's take people on some tours to India. And, of course, you go to India, you pick up the culture and you look at some of the, you go to the Taj Mahal if you've got people with you who've never been to India before. But you can actually go to the spice farms, and almost what we end up with is an extended spice appreciation class, because on long drives in the bus, I will get up and I'll talk to people about the various spices that we've seen or we're seeing, and I'll explain to them how they're processed, the complexity of drying, what drying does, how it activates the enzymes that give the spices their flavour. I talk about the storage, the different ways you can use them. So in a way, it's almost a bit over 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks of an extended spice appreciation class, with the opportunity to actually see them growing, seeing people harvesting them, that sort of thing. And they're lovely. And what's really nice is the people who come with us have all got this common interest. They're not necessarily spice fanatics like me, but they are interested in food. They're interested in the provenance of things, where they come from, how it all happens. And so we've been very lucky that generally we've got 16 to 18 people, and it's always been a lovely, cohesive group, and it's amazing the number of people who continue to keep in touch after the tours. So it's great. And we are going to do one in January 2025. We're not doing one in 2024. We did one the beginning of this year, so we don't do them every year. Right. But they're great fun. They're very interesting. And one of the things that's a lot of fun is we have a spice challenge. So I actually give people a couple of $100 rupees, and I send them out into the spice market, and I say, now you buy, because I've already talked to them about quality and how you evaluate it and all that sort of thing. And I say, go out into the market, buy some spices, and then this evening, what we will do is we will have the spice challenge, and whoever wins will get a prize. So Liz and I will have found something that we can give people as a prize, and then we go through all the spices people have purchased, and we might say, well, you got a lot of spice for your 200 rupees, but I'm afraid it's not a very good quality, that one. It's whatever. And so, that's a little bit of fun as well, but it's also a great way for people to learn.
I mean, I'm okay. Top line. I was in Turkey in the Grand Bazaar recently in Istanbul.
Yeah,
fake saffron. I mean,
of course,
fake saffron is the biggie, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Is it? I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it is the biggie. It's the most obvious one because saffron is the world's most expensive spice. Average value in the marketplace can be anywhere up to $20,000 a kilo. And for
going great for saffron at the moment. Okay,
absolutely.
So if you think you're going to get a little vial for $2 in the Grand Bazaar, you are delusional, right?
Well, you very well could be. There are good deals to be had, but very unlikely in the Grand Bazaar. But what you find is that, as I often say to people, the spice trade is the world's second oldest profession and has about as many rogues in it as the world's oldest profession. And that's because when you're dealing with any commodity that's a high value, if you can adulterate it a little bit, then of course that adulteration is all profit. Now, the adulteration of saffron has gone back for centuries. Back in around about 12th century Germany, they used to have the saffron police. They called the Safranescu. And the saffron police, if they caught you selling adulterated saffron or fake saffron, you would be buried alive with your fake or adulterated material.
Where was this?
Germany.
Oh my goodness, that's quite astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah. So how's that for consumer laws?
Oh, I love it. I think I've bought quite a bit of fake saffron. I mean, I love going into spice markets, in places like Iran where you'll see things like barberries that you just don't see in other countries, and then there are spice mixes, spice blends such as Ras El Hanout in Morocco, which translates as top of the shop. So it's supposed to be the premium spice mix, and it is. If you get a good Ras El Hanout, then I think my life is. I'm a lot happier afterwards.
It's very special.
It is, a great Ras El Hanout. Is there a spice that you just can't get in Australia? Something that you always bring back with you, and where do you get that from?
Yeah, well, actually, on that subject, I never ever bring any spices back with me.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Because the problem is that with Australian biosecurity...
That was going to be my next question.
The regulations are extremely strict. And in the business that I'm in, I can't afford to try and bring some stuff in and have a red flag that goes up that says, keep an eye on this guy, because you never know what he's going to bring in.
Also, you don't want to be on that terrible TV show where nobody is saying it. Exactly. I'm terrified of that. I am very strict on what's in my bag and declaring everything because for the same reason you don't want to kill your career over a handful of dodgy pepper.
Exactly.
Fabulous. And what about native spices that are indigenous to Australia? Do you have a particular favourite here. And where do you go to get it?
Yeah. I have a favourite, and that is lemon myrtle. And I use lemon myrtle a lot instead of lemongrass. So one of the things I like to tell people about the Australian native herbs and spices, try not to think of them just as bush tucker. Think of them as flavours within their own right. So I use lemon myrtle instead of lemongrass. And when I developed our Luxor spice blend, which is a very popular spice blend that we make, I put ground lemon myrtle leaf in that instead of lemongrass. And it works beautifully.
Oh, that's a great okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, it's so good. And if you do have a lemon myrtle tree growing, you can use the fresh leaves instead of fresh lemongrass.
This is absolutely fascinating. I'm going to ask you the last question, which is the one we ask all our guests, which is, what is your most bizarre travel experience? And I reckon you might have had a few. I just have that feeling. Go and tell me your top one.
Oh, goodness gracious me, there have been a few. I think probably the one that was the weirdest was when we were in the south of India, and we were told that we were going to be taken to a turmeric plantation because we really wanted to see the turmeric growing. So we get in the ambassador car with our lovely man from the Spices Board, who became a very good friend. And there were actually, if you can imagine the old ambassador car, like the old Morris Oxford, there were about 7 of us in the car, about 4, that might have been more than 7, might have been 8, about 4 crammed in the front seat and 4 crammed into the back seat. So we're going along this track and we're looking for Stanley's Farm. Anyway, we're going along, and of course what happens is that the car starts to bottom out, so we've all got to get out of the car, push it so that it gets over the humps. Then we walk the rest of the way. So it's just in the evening, the dusk is just coming in, there's still a little bit of light, and there's this huge open paddock, beautiful red soil. There's nothing growing there. And the guy says, "Oh yeah, this is the turmeric plantation. It was all harvested today." So
embarrassing for somebody leading the tour.
yes, so. But the other one that I won't mention the country because some people might take it as a little bit offensive, but there have been a couple of places where we've been in a spice market, and not even with one of our groups, but, we've been looking at the spices and someone else, just another tourist, has said, "Oh, is this saffron all right?" Because for some reason they've overheard Liz and I talking. And I've said, well, actually, no, it's not the real thing. And on the way out, I got some very nasty threats to not come back or be seen in that area again. There's something very unpleasant. What happened to me?
Chase you out with a gun, did they?
No, they didn't chase me out with a gun. Not quite, but yeah. So
you needed the saffron police to come in and bury
exactly
their nets with their produce.
Exactly.
I love it.
But the whole thing is, you see, the other thing too is you've got to be a little bit, what we just say, kind's not probably quite the word, but what you find is that in a lot of these countries, the people are struggling. They depend on the tourist trade. And, we often think our view of the world is, as a tourist, if we get ripped off a bit, funnily enough, that really doesn't worry Liz and I. If we find out we've paid too much for something or whatever, it's all part of the experience. You're a tourist. You're contributing to the local economy. And at the end of the day, if you look at what you've bought or paid for or whatever, from our way of life and what we have, it's infinitesimal that it might have helped those people a little bit. So it does bug me a little bit when people want to haggle too much with the locals. It might be a bit of fun to haggle a little bit, but the lovely thing with the Indians, you turn it into a joke. Haggling with them can actually be a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, you probably don't get the price down much. But it doesn't matter. It's I think people shouldn't get too hung up about that when they travel, because we're very fortunate, and those people do depend on the tourists and what we buy and the resources we use when we're there.
That's very wise words. Thank you so much, Ian. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on The World Awaits. We're going to include those destinations and a link to your shop as well in the show notes.
Herbie's has some inspiring new spice mixes and some blends that would make great Christmas gifts. So if you want to grab them or have a look, go to their online store or visit to join Ian's next spice tour to India at herbies.com.au. And before we go, just a little reminder that if you'd like to buy us a coffee, so to speak, so we can keep this show on the road, please check out our coffee account at ko-fi.com/theworldawaits. And we'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button.
Do it. That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods. And where can people find you, Kirstie?
I'm at Kirstie Writes on Instagram. That's Kirstie Writes, WRITES. And where can people find you, Belle?
You can find me at globalsalsa.com or on Insta at global_salsa.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.